I don't know what made me open that dusty box in the attic. Maybe boredom. Maybe instinct. Or maybe deep down I already knew something wasn't right. My wife was downstairs, humming while slicing apples in the kitchen, completely unaware that, in just a few seconds, I was about to find something that would shatter the way I saw her, something I wasn't meant to see. If you've ever had that gut feeling that someone close to you, someone you sleep next to every night, is hiding something, then stay with me. Because what I found inside her old high school yearbook wasn't just creepy. It was a warning. Her name had been violently scratched out. Not just once, but on every page she appeared on. And in blood-red ink, someone had written the word run. Just that, nothing else. And I swear to you, in that moment, I felt like the air around me changed. Like something ancient and cruel had just opened its eyes again. Now, before I take you deeper into this, let me tell you why you should keep watching, because I know you're curious, but I also know your time matters. You're not just here for some recycled horror story or a lazy voiceover with spooky music in the background. You clicked this because you saw that thumbnail, and something inside you said, wait, this could be real. And guess what? You're right. You're going to get the answer you came here for, and it's not what you're expecting. By the end of this video, I promise you'll know the truth. But what that truth does to you afterward, that's on you. So let's talk just you and me. Let's go back to the beginning, to the moment when I first noticed my wife acting strange. Because I'm guessing, like me, you've had moments where the people you love felt like strangers. Where they smiled, but it didn't quite reach their eyes. Where they said, I'm fine. And you knew something darker was living behind those words. That's how it started for me. Little things. Her phone, always face down. Doors she'd lock even when she was the only one home. And this one night, she woke up screaming a name I didn't recognize. A name I'll never forget now. Her name is Emily, the woman I married. The woman I thought I knew. We've been together 6 years. Married 3. And for the most part, life felt normal. She's warm, funny, the kind of person who fills a room without trying. But lately, I noticed a weight on her. Like she was always waiting for something to happen. Something bad. She double-checked the locks. She started sleeping with the lights on. She stopped going near mirrors. And anytime I brought up her past, where she grew up, who her friends were in high school, she'd change the subject. Or worse, she'd freeze completely, like I just asked her something that could get us both killed. So that day, when I stumbled across the old cardboard box while looking for winter coats, I thought maybe I'd finally learn more about her life before me. Inside were a few random trinkets, childhood photos, some birthday cards, a charm bracelet that looked older than her, and then, buried at the bottom, was the yearbook. Plain black cover, gold embossed letters. Class of 2006, Willow Creek High. I remember flipping it open casually, not expecting anything. But the moment I saw the first page with her picture, I stopped breathing. Someone, and I mean someone filled with rage, had gone through every page and scratched her face out with a knife or razor or something sharp enough to leave actual grooves in the paper. Deep ones. Like the person didn't just want to erase her, they wanted to hurt her. And next to almost every photo, scrawled in thick red marker, was the word, run. Just that. All caps. Over and over and over. Sometimes underlined. Sometimes with arrows. One time, right across a group photo, it just said, you shouldn't have come back. And the worst part? I didn't recognize any of the people in the photos with her. They all had smiling faces, but not a single name matched the ones she'd ever mentioned. Even creepier, none of them had their names scratched out. Only hers. Everyone else looked fine. But on the last page, where they usually print the most likely to, quotes, Emily's entry had been blacked out completely. Like someone had taken a Sharpie to the page. You couldn't even make out the original print beneath it. And underneath that, in messy handwriting, someone had written, SHE doesn't belong here. Now here's where things go from weird to full-blown nightmare fuel. I confronted her about it that night. She turned white as a ghost the second she saw it in my hands. She didn't get angry. She didn't cry. She just froze. And then, slowly, she whispered, you weren't supposed to find that. Not where did you find that, or why are you going through my things? No. You weren't supposed to find that. Like the book itself was a trap. Like I'd triggered something that couldn't be undone. I asked her what it meant. Why someone would do that. Who wrote those messages. But she wouldn't say. All she did was shake her head and tell me we needed to leave the house. That night. No questions. Just leave. And when I asked, leave where? Go why? She looked me dead in the eyes and said something I still can't make sense of. Because it knows you saw it. And now, it's going to wake up. So now we're here. And listen, I know how this sounds. I'm not here trying to convince you to believe in ghosts or curses or whatever. But I am telling you this. Something is wrong. Deeply wrong. And the more I dig, the more I realize this isn't just about my wife or her past. It's about a whole town that pretended something never happened. It's about a secret buried for decades. And it's about a group of kids who made a deal that went too far, and only one of them lived to tell about it. So stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you footage. Old newspaper clippings. Messages I found that weren't meant to be found. I'm going to take you with me as I try to figure out who or what wants my wife gone. And trust me, you'll want to see this through. Because what's coming next is the part no one's been able to explain. The part that even the police wouldn't touch. The part Emily warned me about right before she disappeared. I haven't seen her in 3 days, and last night, someone left the yearbook open on our front porch. A new message was scrawled across the cover. It said, "You didn't run." I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. The house felt too still, like it was holding its breath. I kept pacing around the living room, yearbook clutched in one hand, trying to make sense of everything. The porch light flickered on and off, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. I kept glancing at the window, expecting to see someone or something, watching. But no one came. Just the wind pushing leaves down the street and the occasional creak of the house settling. That yearbook, though it sat heavy in my lap like a cursed object, humming with silence. The fresh message on the cover, "You didn't run," wasn't in the same handwriting as the others. That was the first thing I noticed. The letters were shaky, almost childlike, like someone had written it in a rush or with trembling hands. I flipped through the pages again, slower this time, looking for anything I might have missed. There, wedged between two stuck-together pages near the back, I found something, a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age and brittle at the corners. It was a letter, handwritten and dated 2006. Just one sentence. "If you're reading this, it means she came back. And now none of us are safe." By morning, I was numb. I called her phone for the 5th time. Still no answer. Straight to voicemail. Her last message had been short, almost robotic. "Don't follow me. Please. Don't look for me. I'm doing this to protect you." I played it over and over, trying to pick apart her tone, the pause between her words, even the subtle sounds in the background. Birds? Water? It was hard to tell. But something in her voice didn't sound like fear. It sounded like guilt, like she was doing penance for something. And that's when I knew this wasn't just about some high school drama that went too far. This was deeper. Older. Whatever it was, it didn't start with her, and it sure wasn't going to end with me. I decided to go back to Willow Creek, the town where she grew up. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Just packed a bag, grabbed the yearbook and the letter, and got in the car. The drive was long and strangely quiet. No music, no podcasts. Just the sound of tires on pavement and the hum of my own racing thoughts. I kept going over the people I'd seen in the photos. Some of them had signatures next to their names. I figured if I could find at least one of them, I might get some answers. Maybe they knew who wrote those messages. Maybe they could tell me what Emily was so afraid of. But the second I hit the town limits, I could feel it. This place wasn't normal. The air felt thicker. Trees leaned just a little too far over the road. Even the sky looked duller, like the color had been drained out of it. And no one on the streets made eye contact. Not one person. I pulled up to the local library first. It looked like it hadn't changed in decades. Dusty windows, rusted sign, a single flickering light over the door. Inside, it was just as I expected. Quiet, cold, and heavy with that old paper smell. I approached the front desk, where a middle-aged woman with graying hair and a name tag that read Martha sat typing slowly on an outdated computer. I asked her if they had archived yearbooks or school records from Willow Creek High. She didn't even look up when she answered. Just said, most of the records from before 2007 were lost in a fire. Town Hall might have copies. But her eyes, when I mentioned Emily's name, I swear she flinched. Barely. But it was there. Like she recognized it and was trying not to. I spent the next few hours going through newspaper archives, focusing on the years around 2006. That's when I found something that made my skin crawl. A string of disappearances. All teens. All from Willow Creek High. No clear pattern. No suspects. Just kids vanishing one by one. It didn't even make front-page news, just tiny blurbs in the local section, always brushed off with vague explanations. But then I saw it. An article dated June 18, 2006. Local girl missing after graduation bonfire. Parents plead for her safe return. The photo was blurry, but unmistakable. It was Emily. Only her last name was different. That's why I hadn't found it earlier. The article said she was last seen at a bonfire in the woods near the school, along with 5 other students. The fire burned through the night. 3 of them were found asleep on the edge of the woods the next morning. One was found wandering the highway barefoot, covered in ash. And Emily, she was gone. For 2 weeks. No one saw her. No one heard from her. Then one day she just came back, dirty, bruised, and silent. And according to the article, she wouldn't say a word about what happened. Not then. Not ever. I kept digging. Found online forums where old classmates of hers mentioned rumors, whispers about a dare, a game, something called the Red Wake. They said it was just a story. Something seniors made up to scare freshmen. But a few posts hinted that it was real. That it went wrong that night in the woods. That someone something answered. I screenshotted every thread I could find. One user kept popping up. Username. KN0W_the truth_06. They claimed to have been there. They posted cryptic messages, warnings to stay away from Willow Creek, to forget the yearbook, and to never look her in the eyes if she starts humming. That last part made my blood run cold. Because Emily had been humming all week. The same tune. Over and over. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. But now? It felt like a signal. I checked into a motel just outside town. Something cheap and forgettable. The kind of place that still had ashtrays in the rooms and static on the TVs. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Kept staring at the yearbook, flipping through the pages, feeling like I was being watched. Around 2 a.m., someone knocked on my door. Not loud. Just 2 soft taps. I got up, heart racing, and looked through the peephole. No one there. But when I opened the door, there was an envelope on the ground. Inside, a photo. Old, color-faded, clearly taken with a disposable camera. It showed a group of teenagers standing around a fire, smiling. Emily was in the center. But the others, their faces had been scratched out with something sharp. Deep scratches, same style as the yearbook. On the back of the photo was a message. She said the name. We told her not to. Now we're all marked. I don't know what name they meant. I don't know who left the photo. But I do know one thing. I'm not the first person to uncover this. And if the pattern is real, I may not make it out either. Something is following me. I see shapes at the edge of my vision. I hear knocking when no one's there. My phone glitches every time I try to call someone from the town. And last night, someone whispered my name through the vent. Just once. But it was enough. I know now that whatever happened that night in 2006 was never buried. It's still alive. And Emily's return, it stirred it back awake. I'm going to find out the truth. No matter what it costs. Even if it means following the same path she did. But before I go any further, I need you to know one last thing. I went back to the library today, hoping to speak to Martha again. But the desk was empty. Just a sticky note on the monitor that said, "Stop digging, or you'll end up like her." And taped underneath it was Emily's school ID, with her eyes scratched out. I stood in the library doorway long after the place had gone dark, staring at that sticky note and the ID taped below it like it was some kind of warning. No, not a warning, a threat. Emily's face, once so familiar, was now defaced with deep, deliberate gouges right across her eyes. The same kind of scratches I'd seen in the yearbook. Same pressure. Same rage behind it. Whoever left this message wanted me to stop. They were telling me, loud and clear, that this was bigger than just a high school secret. That I was brushing against something dangerous, something I wasn't meant to uncover. But fear, real fear, doesn't always make you back down. Sometimes, it pushes you forward, because the silence becomes more unbearable than the risk. And at that point, I had to know. Because if Emily was out there, if she was still alive and scared and hiding, then leaving this alone wasn't an option. I checked my phone again, even though I knew the signal wouldn't come through in that part of town. Still nothing. But a new voicemail alert had popped up, timestamped at 3:03 a.m., even though it was only 2:41. I hit play, and my heart dropped. It was Emily's voice. But not like before. This time it was whispering, fractured, like it had been recorded through static or underwater. I couldn't make out much, but one sentence came through crystal clear. Don't trust the ones who stayed. And then, at the very end, a voice I didn't recognize came on.
Mail. Come.
Too calm. He said, you shouldn't be here. She broke the rules. You're next. The line cut off with a sound I can only describe as bones snapping underwater. I don't care how brave you think you are. Hearing that alone in a dead silent building, with every light flickering like it couldn't decide whether to work or die, it makes your blood turn to ice. I left the library fast, got into my car, and drove without thinking. I ended up at the school, Willow Creek High. Or what was left of it. The building had been condemned years ago, overtaken by vines and cracked concrete. The windows were boarded up, and half the roof had collapsed. But I had to see it. I had to understand what kind of place could foster something like this. I parked out front and walked around the side, flashlight in one hand and the yearbook clutched in the other. There was a broken section of fence behind the gym. I slipped through it, heart pounding in my ears. The inside smelled like mold and ash and time. Every step echoed louder than it should have. Classrooms were empty, desks overturned, hallways tagged with graffiti, most of it harmless, except for one word that kept showing up again and again. Witness. Spray-painted in red on locker doors, scratched into the tile with nails, written in smeared black soot across the old gym floor. Always the same word, over and over. Witness. I made it to the auditorium. The air felt colder there. Still. I aimed my flashlight toward the stage and saw that someone had recently been there. The floor was swept clean, too clean. And there were candles placed in a circle, all burned down halfway. In the center, a photo of 6 teenagers, same group from the bonfire photo. And beneath it, something new, a Polaroid that hadn't been there before. I picked it up carefully. It showed me, standing outside the motel, looking over my shoulder. Taken just hours ago. That was the first time I felt true panic in my bones. Someone had been following me, watching, documenting my every move. And then I saw it, on the wall behind the stage, scrawled in giant red letters. She remembered. That's why she ran. My flashlight flickered, and I spun around thinking I heard footsteps. Nothing. Just the creak of old beams settling. But then something buzzed in my pocket, my phone. Another voicemail. This one just static. But layered within it, something strange. A melody. The same tune Emily had been humming. That's when I realized it wasn't just a nervous habit. It was a signal. A ward. Maybe even a trigger. And I remembered something from the forums. If she starts humming, don't look at her. That's what it said.
But why?
What happened that night in 2006? I started piecing things together. The bonfire, the disappearances, the Red Wake game, whatever that meant. Something had been summoned, something not fully explainable. A ritual? A pact? The details were scattered, buried, erased. But whatever it was, it hadn't ended that night. It had followed them. and now it was following me. And here's the twist, the one that made me question everything I thought I knew. As I was leaving the auditorium, something caught my eye on the dusty hallway bulletin board. An old event flyer from 2006 advertising the Senior Spirit Bonfire. Standard stuff, except for the small, handwritten note at the bottom corner that had faded over time. I had to squint to read it, but I did. And it said, "We meet at the mirror tree. Say the name. Watch the light change." And that's when it hit me. I'd seen that phrase before. On Emily's charm bracelet. Tiny etchings, barely legible, wrapped around the silver links. I thought it was just decorative, but it wasn't. It was a message. A clue. And mirror tree? That was the old nickname for a weirdly shaped oak at the edge of Willow Creek Woods, where the leaves supposedly never changed with the seasons. Locals thought it was cursed. Kids used to dare each other to touch it and wait to see their reflections in the bark. I knew then, with a sick certainty, that whatever happened that night began there. And that was where I'd find my answers. But before I could leave, I heard a voice. Not a whisper, not a hallucination. An actual voice, female, soft but direct, coming from down the hall. I followed it carefully, flashlight trained ahead. The hallway was darker here, colder. The voice was singing now, no words, just the same humming Emily had done, over and over. I rounded the corner and saw a girl standing at the end of the hall, facing the lockers. Her hair was long, tangled. She wore an old school uniform, faded and torn. My voice caught in my throat as I realized I'd seen her face before. In the yearbook. A girl who'd been listed as missing in one of those news blurbs. Her name was Jessica Lane. And she hadn't aged a day since 2006. I blinked, and she was gone. Just gone. But etched into the locker, where she stood, was something new.
Fresh.
Not dusty or aged like the rest of the school. It said, "She lied. She brought it back. You're already marked." Now I'm sitting here in the car outside the motel, engine off, door locked, trying to piece all of this together. I don't know who to trust. I don't even know if Emily is still fully Emily. But I know this. She didn't just run because she was scared. She ran because she remembered something that the others buried. Something they swore they'd never speak of again. And she came back because she thought it was over. She was wrong. And now it's watching me. The forest around Willow Creek was dead silent when I stepped out of the car. The kind of silence that made you feel like even the trees were holding their breath. I had driven through the back roads for over an hour until I found the place the locals called Mirror Tree. You wouldn't even notice it unless you knew what you were looking for, a huge, twisted oak with silver-like bark that shimmered faintly even in the dark. The air felt wrong the moment I got close.
Too still. Too heavy.
My phone was useless. No signal, no light. Even the screen had begun glitching again, showing those flickering, broken pixels that seemed to pulse in time with my heart. I stood before the tree, holding Emily's bracelet in one hand and the yearbook in the other. I didn't know what I was expecting, answers maybe. Or at least something to tell me I wasn't completely losing my mind. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and whispered the name I had seen mentioned so many times in the Red Wake threads. The name that everyone said not to say. The name Emily must have said back in 2006. And then the light changed. Not just a flicker or a shift in the air, but the entire forest turned wrong. The color drained from the leaves. The tree bark darkened like old blood. And suddenly I could see reflections in the tree, not just mine, others. Faces staring back.
Dozens of them.
Blank, hollow-eyed, mouths open in silent screams. I stepped back, heart pounding, but I couldn't run. Something rooted me in place. And then I heard it. A chorus of whispers, voices overlapping, all saying the same word. Witness. Over and over. Until it finally stopped, and one voice broke through the others. Emily's. She stood behind the tree, half in shadow, eyes sunken, skin pale, like she hadn't slept in days. She looked at me with this expression that was equal parts relief and sorrow. She said, "I'm sorry. I tried to stop it. But I didn't bury it deep enough." I asked her what she meant, what she did. And that's when the truth came out. It wasn't just a ritual or a game they played that night. It was a dare that turned into a sacrifice. One of the 6 teens that night wasn't just missing. She had been chosen. Jessica Lane, the girl I saw in the hallway. She had been the offering. The others believed the legend was a joke, a high school scare tactic. But Emily had been the one to say the name. She had been the one to light the final candle. And when Jessica disappeared into the flames, they panicked, covered it up, lied to everyone, said she ran away. But Emily knew it wasn't over. She knew something had followed her back out of those woods. And that thing had been feeding off her guilt ever since. Emily said she tried to outrun it, build a new life, bury her past under a new name, new marriage, new town. But it was always there, watching, waiting. The yearbook was never a warning from someone else. It was from her. She'd done it. Scratched out her name. Wrote those words. Run. Because she knew someone, someday, would get close enough to see who she really was. She told me she left not to protect herself, but to protect me. Because whatever it was, it didn't like being remembered. It lived in forgotten places. In secrets. And now that I'd found the yearbook, listened to the voicemails, followed the trail, I was part of it. She said the only way to end it was to finish what had been started. Go back to the place where Jessica vanished. Say the name again. But this time, take its place. That's when I understood what Emily meant. One of us had to stay. One of us had to offer something back to keep it dormant. She stepped forward, handed me the bracelet, and placed her forehead against mine. Whispered, "You gave me years I didn't deserve. Now I give you yours." And before I could stop her, before I could even beg her not to do it, she turned toward the tree and spoke the name again. But this time, she added something else. A second name.
Mine.
The bark split open. A scream echoed from the center of the tree. Not hers, not mine, but Jessica's. A shape emerged from the bark, pulling itself free like it had been trapped in amber for 2 decades. I'll never forget the way it looked. Not a monster, not a demon, just a girl. A girl stuck in the moment of her death, wide-eyed and forever on fire. Emily took a step forward, hands raised, and whispered something I couldn't hear. The girl nodded once, then reached for Emily's wrist. And just like that, they both were gone. No sound. No fire. Just silence. The tree healed over. The reflections disappeared. The forest came back to life. Birds chirped, wind moved again, and the light turned warm. I stood there, stunned, broken, holding her bracelet and the yearbook. Her name, once scratched out in every photo, was back.
Clear.
Untouched. Smiling. I left Willow Creek before sunrise. Drove home in silence. No one stopped me. No one followed. The motel room was empty, as if I'd never been there.
My phone worked again.
My photos and voicemails were gone, wiped. Like it never happened. Except it did. I know it did. Weeks have passed now. I don't talk about it. Not with anyone. People ask where Emily went, and I say she left. That she couldn't stay. And maybe that's true. But sometimes, when I walk past a mirror or see the shimmer of light on a wet sidewalk, I catch her reflection. Not scary. Not sad. Just still. Watching. And sometimes I hear humming. If you made it this far, you deserve to know this. The past is never really gone. It waits for the right eyes to find it. It feeds off silence. Off secrets. And if you ever find a yearbook with someone's name scratched out and the word run written in blood red ink, you run. Because you were never supposed to see it. End of story.